Hey, it's Kaero, and today I'm going to go over the biggest mistake that aggro players make against control decks. Playing against the control deck can seem very frustrating because it seems like they always have the perfect answer to whatever you're trying to do, including board wipes that just completely clear the entire board. But by using this tip, you will win more games. So what is the tip? It's basically don't be afraid to have your things countered, make them use their counters and their removal on the things that you want them to use them on and not on the things that matter. Let's do a little thought experiment. Let's say that you're playing mono red aggro and it's turn 2. You've already played a 1-drop 1/1 and you're about to play your 2-drop, but they have 2 islands open and you think they have a counterspell in their hand. At this point, you basically have 2 options. You either play your creature or you just sit and wait. Option 1, your creature gets countered, it goes to the graveyard, it goes to their turn. Option 2, you sit, wait, they play a land next turn, and that counterspell still stays in their hand. So which option will be more disastrous for your game plan as a mono red aggro player? Now this scenario might sound simple, but it's easy to get emotionally involved and not want to get your spell countered. And this really goes back to the article from 1999 by Mike Flores, which is a fantastic read. If you haven't read it, it's called Who's the Beatdown? You can find it online, and essentially it is that in any game between 2 decks, one person will be playing Beatdown, one person will be playing Control, no matter what deck archetype they are. One's going to be faster, more damage focused, the other's going to have to control the board. Now, as mono red aggro, you are undoubtedly the Beatdown in this scenario. So your goal is to push damage. If you're not pushing damage, you will lose the game. If this game goes out to turn 8 or 9 and you're drawing a 2-drop creature as your top deck, you will not win the game. As players, we don't want to play into counterspells because we have this emotional aspect to it where if we put a spell on the stack, we feel vulnerable and then they counter it, and it feels like a gotcha moment, right? It feels like they automatically won that moment because I outsmarted you by playing a counterspell. But really, that's just not the case. We need to exhaust their resources and we need to put as much pressure on the control deck as possible to overwhelm them with damage before they can stabilize and cast their more powerful spells. So let's imagine another scenario where it's turn 3 and you have the choice between playing a 3-drop that's really powerful that's going to add to your board, or you're pretty sure they have a counterspell and you can play a 2-drop and a 1-drop. Well, the question becomes, what's more disastrous for your game plan? If they counter your powerful 3-drop, is that going to be devastating to your board to the point that you can't finish out the game? If so, it might be time to play around it. Play your 1-drop first, see if they have a counterspell, try to bait them into using it on your cheap creature. If they don't, then follow it up with that 2-drop, get a wider board state, and go from there. Another scenario is when you're playing non-blue based control. Say you're playing mono black control and they have tons of removal. You don't have to worry about counter spells, but you do have to worry about a lot of removal spells. Well, look at your hand. If you have a card that, say, has Unearth in it, where if it dies, it goes to the graveyard and you can bring it back, a card that you can exile from the graveyard to have a certain effect on the board, it may be time to prioritize playing that, so they waste their removal on that. They get less value out of it than destroying your big threat permanently, and you can gain some additional value later from the graveyard. So for the last minute or so, I've done a lot of talking about playing around counterspells and playing around removal, but sometimes you just need to play your biggest threat, right? You need to make them have the card. And when you do that is based basically on what's the upside versus the downside. So don't play your huge threat when it would be absolutely catastrophic to your game plan if it was immediately removed or countered. But do play your biggest threat if you're going to win the game by having it come out. If you're that close to winning the game, make them have the counterspell, make them have the removal spell, because if they don't have it in their hand, they're just dead. So it's a sliding scale, right? Don't play it when it's unnecessary, but play it when it can absolutely devastate them or really, really impact the board. Take that chance, because there's a lot of times when we gain experience as Magic the Gathering players, when we're very new, we just play things, right? We just play things in whatever order, and we just start attacking. But as you gain knowledge, you go, oh, I think they have this removal spell or this counter spell, and I don't want to get got by that. But if the payoff is big enough, play it, make them have it. And this ties right back into starting at turn 1 by playing your threats on turn 1 and turn 2, drawing out that removal, making them waste them on cheaper threats to clear the way for your big threat on turn 3 and 4 and your aggro finisher. Those removal spells, those counter spells are not going away. Make them use them on cheaper things. So to sum up this video, basically it's this: be pushing damage, but don't overextend yourself into a board wipe. Don't let your linchpin huge creature that's going to win the game be countered. Bait out counters when appropriate, when you think that they have them in their hand. Try to get a sense of how they're playing. But the more important thing is, don't be afraid to make the big play. You'll win more games by being bold when you need to be, but conservative when you can afford to do so. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit that thumbs up for me if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing for more Magic content. And if you have a tip for an aggro player against a control player, please leave it in the comments. This video is far from comprehensive. This is just kind of a primer and a rough guide. So if you have a specific situation or something that somebody else watching this video can learn from, leave it down in the comments. And if you're watching this video for more tips, go down to the comments and read what other players have done or other points that they are making. Thanks. Have a good day.